Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I am back here, one of your hosts, joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how are you doing?
Almost always.
I'm
doing all right. I'm hoping my voice holds out for the end of the episode.
Yeah, we've tried to start this 3 different times, and you've began coughing. Yeah.
But yeah, I just got back from traveling, and so maybe my little dry from the plane or something. But was in New Jersey, not for the Jets.
Back in your homeland, back where you're from.
Mom likes to say I'm from New Jersey. Actually, that's what my friends say. So, where do you think you're from?
Hey,
nowhere.
I'd say you're from New Jersey.
So I had this long discussion with my friends who are all like still living in New Jersey. I was like, "Are you from New Jersey?" I don't know.
If I have to be,
but I was not in the swamp. I was not trying to sneak into the Meadowlands or wherever the practice facility is, and whatever they call it now.
Yeah,
though it is the swamp.
I think it's a few iterations down from the Meadowlands now. If I remember correctly, I believe we're a little ways away from that.
East Rutherford.
Yes, but there is only one football team in New York, and it is not the Jets, and it is not the Giants. The prides of New Jersey.
If you really want to trigger New Yorkers, people from New York City say that you guys don't actually have a football team, you know?
Yep, it's true. But anyway, it's all just one big metropolis anyway.
The Newark Jets and Newark Giants.
But we have spent enough oxygen on New Jersey already. We are here today.
That's all they had. We used it all up.
We are here today to talk a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about training camp coming up 1 week away, Dad, and we'll talk about some dates in just a second. Before we get into anything here, though, just want to pitch a couple of things. If you like what you hear, come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out episodes we have. We tweet out news, articles we find interesting, videos we find interesting. And as the season kind of begins in earnest here in the next couple of weeks, it's going to be your kind of one-stop shopping for everything Packers related. And you can kind of keep up with Titletown and everything Green Bay related. Just there, come give us a follow at FatherSonPacker, tweeting off our takes, keeping it, just keeping the takes flying, And then, obviously, we have this podcast. You can come check us out on your podcast platform of choice. Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you can find podcasts, you can find us. You can even find all of our episodes on YouTube. We put them there as well. Come subscribe to us there. It would really help our numbers. We would really appreciate us. We really appreciate it. Dang, I almost made it through the whole thing without making a mistake. We were this close. But that is the spiel.
Striving. Well, there goes the no-hitter.
That's blowing a no-hitter on the last out in the ninth right there. Oh goodness. There was, small aside, someone was talking about like best pitching performances, and I cannot remember who it was. Do you know who it was that had a no-hitter through 10 innings? Or a perfect game through 10 innings, and just like his team could not buy a run, and so he lost his no-hitter. I feel like
do you remember who that was? Nor do I remember the guy who had the no-hitter.
He played for the Tigers. I know.
Game.
He had a perfect game, and the umpire blew
the call
yeah
on the last out of the game.
Yes, I should know his name because I remember watching the highlights of that on SportsCenter when I was like 10, 11 years old, something like that, and just being so crestfallen. I don't even like the Tigers.
No, we hated the Tigers because they kept beating the A's in the playoffs.
The Tigers beat the A's like 3 of 6 years at one point. Those Magglio Ordonez teams and
Cabrera, Verlander, and Scherzer, I think, at the same time.
No. This was pre-Scherzer.
The ones that they definitely had Verlander.
They had Verlander, yes. But yeah, good times, good stuff. But anyway, we are not here to talk about baseball. Anyway,
anymore.
We are here to break down essentially a little preview because we are very excited that training camp starts in a week. But first, some news relating to the Packers. We promise we will not go off topic the rest of the episode. We swear. But anyway,
you can't promise that.
Some initial piece of news. The first thing is that the Packers have now officially signed all of their draft picks as Luke Musgrave and Jaden Reed signed their contracts this week. It does seem like second rounders are always the last ones to sign.
Always the second rounders. Yeah. I think it's something specific about the way there's a little flexibility in the language, I think, in terms of what's guaranteed and what's not. And so the amount that's guaranteed, the percentage keeps like creeping earlier and earlier, or creeping across to try to include almost all the second round every year. A couple extra picks get more guaranteed. And so I think it's every year it's always the second rounders have our last. So I was actually very pleased. I was afraid that it might get a little bit of a training camp And it's nice that everybody's signed and nobody's going to miss any of training camp.
Yeah, that's always a plus. And then the other piece of news is the Packers have added another arm in the quarterback room, signing Alex Magoo, USFL MVP. It's always great when you can go from one MVP to another, as Devonte Adams once said. And to do so, they released offensive lineman DJ Scaife.
Now, was he the only one who's like officially a center on the roster besides?
I mean, Myers.
Myers. The only one who was like a backup who was officially a center.
That's officially listed as a center. I think he must be because Tom is listed at O-line. He's not listed even at a position.
Right. And Hanson's
listed at guard. I don't think they've ever even played him at center. Elton's listed at guard.
So they may have no official backup center on the roster.
Yeah, but potato,
and,
tomato.
And Magoo, they've got their veteran backup that everybody's been asking for. You know, he graduated from Florida International.
Oh goodness,
you are 2017.
Put me on the spot there. Okay, you're official on that.
I've got it open. FIU, the Golden Panthers in 2017. He's when he came out of school.
Yeah, and he spent some time with, I was looking at it, the Seahawks, the Jaguars, and the Texans in the NFL. Hasn't really played any NFL snaps. I think he was in the same draft as Danny Etling, I believe, if I remember correctly. Hanson is listed at center/guard, so we do at least have one player who is double listed. I was interested, so I went and checked. But that is the only center guard. And Myers, of course. But for Magoo, another arm in the quarterback room. They did kind of lack experience there. Do I think it makes a big difference? I mean, I hope not, because it would be kind of spooky if it did. We would really hope it doesn't make a big difference. But just, go see what he has in training camp. You got 90 spots on the roster. You might as well just see what you got there.
I think they like to have 4 arms for running some of the drills in training camp, too. I think it's one reason why they have extra quarterbacks, so that people don't have to wait so much for a turn to do a drill. You got 4 people. You can have more people throwing. And so the receivers, tight ends, and running backs can get more reps in the passing drills. It makes for more efficient practice.
And the other thing that I don't know if we mentioned, but it looked like both Love and Etling, as well as, this is based on Aaron Jones' Instagram story, as well as Aaron Jones, Christian Watson, goodness gracious, and then Cotton, yes, and why am I blank? Dontavian Wicks, and I think Jaden Reed were all out in California, working during the last, I think it was a week and a half ago or a week ago, I believe. It was like right after we recorded, I think. But yeah, so that's just kind of just touching on quarterbacks and quarterbacks working with skill players. Since we were already talking about that, figure we might as well throw that in while we could. Speaking of quarterbacks, though, a little note on the schedule in the coming week as we pretty much kind of get into Packers training camp in earnest, which we're kind of doing a little preview of today for the main portion of our episode. But we are essentially 6 days from Packers training camp. And some teams have already actually started training camp today. The Chiefs and the Jets were 2 that I already saw have been having practices. In terms of the Packers schedule, Friday, July 21st, so that's tomorrow as we record here. Thursday night, it'll probably be today as you're listening to this. Packers quarterbacks, rookies, and injured players will report. And then on Monday will be the shareholders meeting, July 24th. And then Tuesday, July 25th, the veterans will report. And then the first official practice will be at 10:30 a.m. on Wednesday, the 26th. So, Dad, we are almost back to football. We are almost there.
The next time we record, there should have been a practice, or maybe even 2.
Yes, and I believe 51 days from kickoff.
I've lost
51, 52.
Number of days.
It's 51 or 52 because I remember I saw a post that was like, we're Clay Matthews days away from
was that yesterday
first
or
day.
today?
And that's the thing. I was like, I can't remember if I saw yesterday or today, but we're around abouts there. It really depends how you count. Who's counting anyway? But anyway, that is pretty much all of the news and notes. Still a bit of a lull here. The only other real thing is the running back stuff, which we could talk about for a second, but it's not really Packers related. It's more just league-wide in general. It seems like running backs are continuing to get devalued, which is obviously sucks for running backs. I think the best
running backs need a union.
They need their own union, yeah, honestly, because it's just they're getting. I think the best pitch I've heard is to change the rookie pay scale for running backs specifically, since those first 4 or 5 years are the best years for them, and they're getting and it's the years that they're getting paid like not at all. But the new CBA won't be up until 2030, I think. So Oof. It's a while to wait, and so I'm sure this is going to be something that the Packers are going to face at some point in the next 5-6 years. So just kind of keeping an eye on what running backs around the league, specifically Jacobs and Saquon Barkley, who have not signed their franchise tags, and more power to them. But if they hold out, I could see it kind of being a.
Did you see what?
Yeah,
Saquon
but
said about his negotiating position.
It was taken out of context. I don't know if you saw the full video, but
I didn't see the full video.
It was taken out of context, so I don't want to quote it. But the just probably if they hold out, I could see that becoming a growing pattern for running backs around the league, and then that would definitely be something the Packers would probably have to deal with as well in coming years, because I think there's not really a lot of recourse for running backs right now. But anyway. Moving on to the Packers training camp, Dad. I am very excited. I know you are very excited. So we just kind of wanted to preview this training camp. We have each kind of prepared 5 fill-in-the-blank type questions for each other. We have not seen each other's questions. You have some spares in case we end up with duplicates, you said. So shout out to you. I did not. I did the exact minimum. But
you could just say I was indecisive.
But yeah, sure. We'll go with that. But anyway, so we each have kind of 5 fill-in-the-blank type questions to kind of get the juices flowing on some discussions around training camp, as it is kind of right around the corner. Shall we just start off? I don't mind asking you the first one, if that's fine with you.
Sure, fire away.
All right. My first fill-in-the-blank question for you, Dad, is blank, and this is a player name, kind of like a Mad Lib, fill in a player name here. Blank has the most to gain this training camp on the Packers. The most to gain.
Most to gain.
Not the most to prove. The most to gain.
And
I can kind of tell you what I was thinking here.
Okay. Well, let me give mine first. So I might say, that's.
It's a tough
tricky
one. It's a tricky one. And I know I'm putting you on the spot here. And these are going to be a lot of ones where we're putting each other on the spot.
Maybe one on offense and one on defense.
All right, hit me.
So the one on offense is a little bit, maybe he can't actually gain. Josiah DeGuara.
Okay. Give me the pitch.
Is that this is his chance to prove he can be a tight end and earn himself a second contract somewhere. There's a general idea that, Rodgers didn't want to throw too much, and Love seems to look for him. I mean, he's kind of been ignored and forgotten about with the 2 new draftees. And he might actually be able to do more. He might have more production than people are expecting this year, because he has a connection with Love already. He's not as athletic. He doesn't have the upside that Musgrave or Kraft have, but he may have a sneaky amount of production. I think he's going to be more than he's had any year in his career. So this might be his chance to show something.
Here's my follow-up question. Is he a tight end? Because he was working essentially off to the side, him and, oh my goodness, please help me. The other guy, the other fullback they have on the roster who is on the 53.
I'm drawing a blank. I want to say like McDonald, but that's not quite it.
No, it's Henry Pearson. Henry Pearson.
I'm thinking of another guy.
Yes. But him and Pearson were essentially working. Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't put it in, but one question I was thinking is like, where will DeGuara line up the most this year?
Blank will be where DeGuara lines up the most this year. I think fullback. I think he showed, honestly, a lot of really promising things as a blocker last year. And it does seem like from minicamp and OTAs that we saw a lot of DeGuara and Musgrave on the field at the same time, with kind of DeGuara, and that DeGuara is kind of getting I hate to say pigeonholed because it has a bit of a negative connotation in terms of like, oh, he's getting stuck there. I think, he's being allowed to focus on being a fullback. And I do think that has been what's been the best like looks we've seen from him is like just coming downhill blocking in the run game has been what he's been best at. Yes. I have not seen a whole lot of juice in the passing game out of him. I know he had that one like crazy big touchdown against the Lions 2 years ago.
I think if he gets like a wheel route with momentum, he could do something with the ball in his hands. And I feel like his best plays are when he's like coming around the outside as a lead blocker.
Yeah, as a lead, he's a good lead blocker. Like that, and that's solid. This is a solid lead blocker. But I think he does have a lot to prove. And so, who was your player on defense, or a lot to gain? Sorry, a lot to gain.
Savage.
And Savage has a lot to gain. Interesting. I'm curious
about
for his
that career.
one.
He's playing for his career right now. I mean, maybe it's more he has a lot to gain in the regular season rather than the preseason.
That's true. Yes,
but he did
lose
his job last year.
That's true, but I'm not necessarily certain what he would have to gain the preseason because I think he kind of has that safety spot locked up.
So that's kind of maybe the wrong way to think of it. It's not the preseason where he has the most to gain. It's the regular season he has the most to gain.
Yeah, and for me,
that's not really the right way to look at it.
And for me, I think that the player I believe has the most to gain is probably either Samori Toure or Dontavian Wicks, because I think that fourth receiver spot is up for grabs. And I know they probably aren't going to run a lot of like 4 receiver sets. It does not seem to be something that they're really gunning for. I like that DeGuara answer a lot. I think if I wasn't picking one of them two, I would have picked DeGuara. But that fourth receiver spot is up for grabs, and maybe there's not a ton of playing time there, but if one of those other guys goes down, there's going to be a lot of snaps available. And I think it's kind of up in the air because I don't think obviously they've talked a lot about Toure, but I don't think they're like married to this idea that he is for certain going to be in that slot.
No,
and I don't mean slot as in slot receiver. I mean slot as in that
spot.
Position. Yeah.
There wasn't that much buzz around him in OTAs.
Yeah.
Compared to how much they talked him up before OTAs.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm still of the mind that they were talking him up a lot because there were only 3 of them in that room, and it would be kind of awkward to only gas up 2 of them and just not talk about the third one at all. Because it's like that'd be like, oh yeah, we really love like Romeo and Christian. It's like okay, so you're just not bringing up the third guy.
We really love the 2 receivers we've carried over from last year. Oh, what do you mean there's a third?
There is a third. That's right. But so it's like I think Toure had, he had like 1 or 2 nice moments last year. Had that touchdown catch against.
It's interesting when you go back and look. It's like how little opportunity he had.
That's true. That is a good point. He did not have a lot of.
He made He made that nice adjustment for the touchdown. But then even after that, they like barely gave him any run.
I mean, he didn't have a lot of opportunity, but at the same time, I mean, Romeo Doubs was barely on the field in those last like 4 weeks, like either. And did he really have that little opportunity when you think about the fact that he was a 7th round rookie wide receiver? Like,
no, I just mean more in terms of knowing what he can do. We just haven't.
That's true.
Seen him have a chance to show what he can do. That's what I mean by the opportunity.
Yes.
The other thing about when you're saying how often they're going to use 4 wide receivers, I agree that it's going to be rare because I think even if they go like 5 wide, they're probably like one of them's going to be a tight end and one of them's going to be a running back.
Yeah, one's going to be Aaron Jones, one's going to be Musgrave. Like, that's, 100%. I definitely agree. All right, we've spent a lot of time on this question, and we will never finish if we spend this much time on every single one. So you go ahead and ask me
I was telling him, I was like, I don't know how much we're going to be able to talk about this stuff. Says, you guys are going to make it long.
You say that every time. You say every time, it's like, I don't know if we have enough I don't know if we have enough to talk about.
I think we need to double it.
It's like we're at the hour mark. It's like, I don't know if we had enough to talk about. All right, hit me with a question. Hit me with the fill in blank. Okay.
So I don't know if I'm like, can I mangle this wording into a fill in the blank? Probably not.
The Packers just ignoring the format, just completely ignoring the format.
So the idea was the Packers will be. I make more of like a multiple choice, better or worse, out of shotgun in 2023 in terms of rating. The Packers
compared to under center.
Which will they be more efficient in?
Under center or shotgun?
Yeah, under center or shotgun in
Okay.
2023. If you want a little bit of, do you want a little background information?
Yeah, give me some context from last year.
So last year, so I'll give you the 4 years under LaFleur. Last year, 17th by DVOA in shotgun, third by DVOA in under center. 2021, second in DVOA in shotgun, fourth under center. 2020, first in DVOA in shotgun, seventh under center. And in 2019, eighth in DVOA under shotgun, and 14th in center. So it's not always better. And in general,
I would have actually expected them to be better under center than in shotgun, just based on eye test.
And I think a lot of people think that. And so I also looked, so I'll give you one more little bit of information. The Shanahan tree for the last 3 years. So Rams, Niners, Packers, and last year's Dolphins. 4 times they're better under center. 8 times better in shotgun, and 1 time it was a tie in terms of, this is basically the rank by DVOA in the league, not the actual the score.
And I can say I would never have expected that. If you had
I was surprised.
If you had not given me any preface to that, I would have put the house on under center, and because I think, my initial thought is like, okay, LaFleur would prefer. I think the general consensus, or at least my thought on it, is in a vacuum, like if LaFleur had his druthers, so to speak, he would prefer to run more under center stuff than they have been running in the past. And that a lot of the shotgun stuff was more about Aaron Rodgers' preference, like in shotgun. And, he prefers shotgun because, a lot of these kind of older school quarterbacks don't like turning their back to the defense. Understandably, they want to be able to keep their eye where everyone's going. They don't want to lose vision on the players, so that they don't so that they can essentially keep reading the defense the whole play. But I think, it seems that the run game has always felt better under center. And so it feels like the entire offense, I know we've talked about this a lot, always seems to be better when the run game is working. And so I think I've always been like, just go under center so the run game will be better, so we can build a better pass game off of a better run game. Because when we're staying on schedule with, if the run game is keeping us on schedule, the pass game will work. And so that's why I've always been pounding the table for under center. But when you give me all the numbers and the fact that they're generally better by DVOA and shotgun than they have been under center, it's kind of hard for me to be like, oh, go under center, pound the table more. But I do think, that they are going to run more plays under center this year than they have in the past. But I mean, it's hard for me. I'm going to have to say I think they will be better from shotgun than under center because they have been in the past few years. And I know it's probably a lot of that does have to do with Rodgers, but I'm just going to bet on the odds. I'm going to, if you're giving me the odds, if you're telling me what's going
now
each
I'm going
way.
to tell you something I have no information for.
Okay.
I'm going to not tell you, ask you something I have no information for.
I thought you were just going to just make something up. I was like, I'm going to tell you something. I have no information.
I'm going to tell you something I have no information. I'm going to ask you something. So this is the information not broken down for pass or situation. Which do you think is going to be more effective in the red zone?
More effective in the red zone?
Yeah. Under center or shotgun?
I think under center. I think their run game has always been felt better. If I had a nickel for every time we ran a shotgun halfback dive to A.J. Dillon at the 4-yard line and it went for half a yard, I'd have a lot of nickels. Cool. I would have at least a dozen nickels.
When they got tackled in the backfield, when it's they're at the 2 and trying to just dive in, and then they lose 3 yards and they're no longer on the doorstep.
Well, I'm expecting us to at least attempt more than one quarterback sneak this year also. So
Ooh,
I would love to see how they could do that out of shotgun, because no one's figured out how to do that yet. And if anyone is going to figure out how to do that, it's this iteration of the Packers. But
that's what I want to see. But it's
just start sprinting at the line.
Quarterback sneak out of shotgun.
But anyway, no. So I do think they'll be more effective in the red zone, especially the low red zone. More so the low red zone. I would say like within the 10 for certain. Out of under center. because I just think that it seems like they've always run the ball better from under center. We should really get the numbers on that so I don't just sound like a fool. But I think people with eyes could say they're better under center running the ball. But anyway, on to my next question. Okay. Blank is because I'm actually sticking to the format. Blank is the battle I'm most excited to watch in the joint practices. So the Packers will be having joint practices with Cincinnati and New England. So blank, this could be position groups. This could be players. I'm going to steal the obvious one from you while you think. The one I am most actually, sorry. No, I'm trying to steal your thunder. Sorry. This is my question for your answer. Blank is the battle I'm most excited to see in the joint practices with Cincinnati and New England.
So I have to think about who's on New England now. Judon's still there?
Judon's still there. You do not need to pick one for each team. You can just pick one in general.
Well, no, I mean the matchup.
I know, but I think I have the... Oh, I'm not saying between Cincinnati and New England. I'm just saying you can pick players. The one that immediately comes to mind for me is Chase and Jair. Is what comes to mind for me.
The same thing. I'm going Matthew Judon versus our right tackle.
Okay. Very interesting. And who is that right tackle?
That's a very good question.
Not to put you on the spot.
Judon versus Zach Tom.
Okay. I like it. I like it a lot because I think Judon will probably cook him quite a bit because Judon's very good and Zach Tom is still a young player. But I do think it would be very good practice for him. No, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. I think the one that immediately comes to mind for me, obviously, if you're looking at something similar to that, I think you could say Trey Hendrickson will give right tackle also a lot of interesting problems. The one that came to mind for me, though, was Jamar Chase versus Jair, because I just think that is going to be absolutely must-watch electric, like smack talking, 1v1, yes. The best of the best, in a gladiator match, like just no help, no safety help, 1v1s all day.
Jair does some gritty.
Well, and the thing is, they do hate. It does seem like in these joint practices over the years, they don't like doing 1v1s because it 90% of the time leads to a fight.
It's a fight. I was about to say, the over/under for fights in the joint practices is blank.
Half a fight. I think the over/under is half a fight. Actually, maybe 1.5 fights.
Because this isn't like when they were, I don't think like really good friends on opposite sides of the coaching staffs.
I'm trying to think.
Where they try to keep the fights under control since they really know each other well.
LaFleur and Taylor coached together.
Okay.
With the Rams, if I remember correctly. I think Taylor was the quarterback coach on that staff while LaFleur was the offensive coordinator. I don't know what the connection is with the Patriots, but who knows? But yeah, no, I think that's a really good matchup. I think mine was the easy one, the Jair Chase one. And, Douglas Higgins and Nixon Boyd. I mean, pretty much the Packers corners versus the Cincinnati's wide receivers is going to be awesome, I think. But anyway, yeah, I think those are all very excellent matchups.
I was trying to think if there's a corner that you'd really like to see against a Packers receiver.
That's a tough one. Awuzie, probably. I think Chidobe Awuzie for the Bengals. And I think that's probably the easiest easiest one to like think up off the top of my head. But yeah, hit me with your next question though.
Okay. Blank will lead the team in receiving yards / receptions in the preseason.
In the preseason, okay, I like this. In the receiving yards / receptions. Okay, so we're not doing on like a per route basis. This is not an efficiency metric. This is
a counting stat.
Counting stats.
Counting stat in the preseason. Any position.
It's going to be a receiver. It's not. I don't think it's going to be a tight end. I don't think they're going to throw to the tight ends that much in preseason. I don't think it's going to be a running back because I think the quarterbacks they have are more likely to take off and run than they are to check down. Just telling it like it is. And then, so I think it's going to be a receiver. I don't think
they've got instructions like, you better not go running around scrambling for extra yards in a preseason game.
They gotta make an impression, especially guys like Magoo and Etling.
I'm talking about when Love is in there.
Okay, no, I'm talking about Magoo and Etling.
I think he's going to play some.
Yeah, no, he's going to play at least a half, I would hope, or at least a quarter of each game. But
I could see like Ettling and
Magoo and Clifford are going to be running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Like, it's going to be great. I'm going to love watching every second.
I had it, Coach.
I was right there. But anyway, I think to answer your question, most receiving yards and receptions in the preseason. I think yards is going to be a guy who is more of a deep threat guy. Speed. I think yards is going to be Jaden Reed. I think receptions is going to be Toure. I think is my pick.
I would agree with you with Reed. I was thinking the same thing. I think
he'll get loose. He'll get loose deep with his speed on some of these guys who just like aren't as fast as him. And
right after the catch, he'll break one.
Yeah.
The other player I was thinking about maybe for in the discussion for receptions is Wicks.
Well, I was thinking about him for yards.
Oh, that too, because he does. What do you have, like over 20 a game receptions?
Yeah, some insane yards per reception is in 2021 at UVA, like something just off the wall ridiculous. But yeah, so I feel good about those picks, and Wicks was definitely crossed my mind, and I think those would be the ones I would put. And then I almost thought about Tyler Goodson. I really almost did, but I just don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna check down.
He's looked good in the preseason before.
I know. I just don't think they're gonna check down like that. I don't think that's the style of quarterback they have. But I have my next question for you, if you're ready. If David Bakhtiari practices in more than blank % of practices, I won't be worried about his knee anymore.
So I'm thinking. So this is the assumption: 5 practices a week.
Let's say 5 practices a week.
60%.
If he practices in 60%, you won't be worried at all.
If he's practicing 3 practices every week, so that's 3 practices every week,
and you won't be worried.
I think that'll be enough for me not to be worried.
Okay. All right.
If they just decide load management, we're only going to do 3 every week, but he doesn't miss ever.
Okay, so you're saying a scheduled 3. And the 2 misses are always scheduled misses. Okay,
yes,
okay, that makes sense.
Not injury misses, but load management schedule.
All right, okay.
So I guess what I'm saying is, if he hits the schedule they make for him.
Yes, but he doesn't need to practice in every one for you to feel okay.
No.
Okay.
But as long as he's not missing because of like soreness or swelling, it's just like, yeah, this is what we're doing. Monday, Wednesday, Friday he practices. The other 2 days he takes off.
Okay. All right. No, I see what you're going with there. Yes. Okay. That I'm good there. Because I was like, honestly, if he's only hitting 3 of 5, I'm gonna be a little.
Yeah. So the 3 of 5 is contextual.
Yes.
If they want him to do 4, then 4.
Yeah.
If he's missing because of injury, as opposed to how they've decided to schedule it,
I'll be worried. Because I was almost like, it doesn't exist.
There's no number.
Like, even if he practices in every one, I'm still going to be a little worried. But I do see the argument you're making.
Definition worried
of worried? Yes, that's true. We're getting into semantics here. Hit me with your next question.
So is it okay if it's a preseason battle for a regular season?
You just hate following the rules I came up with for our game. You just hate doing it.
Blank will take the most snaps in the slot
in preseason. Or for the season, or what are we thinking?
That was the question I was
practice?
asking.
Let's say in practice. In practice.
Okay.
Luke Musgrave.
Luke
Musgrave will take.
That
might
be the answer, no matter what time you're referring to.
I think 100. Assuming health. I think
that could be
that's
preseason games, practices, and the regular season. The answer might be
Luke Musgrave, just ABC, all of the above. Because I think that, I was saying this earlier. I feel like he is more closely, at least in his rookie year, a supercharged Alan Lazard than he is like a real tight end. Because he's pretty thin, he's really tall, he's pretty decent blocking when he's like already got momentum going. Like when he's moving somewhere, he's not going to pass block. Really, he's probably going to get
pro. I think that's the worst part of his blocking.
It's just like he's not heavy enough. He's not big enough. Like, but I think if he's moving somewhere, he's going to give effort. He's going to at least wall guys off based on like his college tape, the limited amount of it we had. But I think that aligning him in the slot will allow him to do a lot of those Alan Lazard type things and then also stretch the seam. Because, I think asking him to do a lot of inline stuff is not putting him in the position that is best for him. What would you have said for this? Would you have also said Musgrave, or were you leaning Reed? I think was the other one I was thinking about.
The other, I might have been leaning Reed, but it might have been wrong.
And did I take you? I took you over to the Musgrave side. I really think he's gonna just kind of be a big receiver in this offense his rookie year, and then maybe as years go on, they'll kind of put more on his plate. But there's room for a big slot. There's room for a big slot in this offense.
That's what Lazard was often.
Oh, and
one thing I haven't looked up is like how often do like Waller and Kelsey line up in the slot?
Oh, it's a lot. I mean, I could pull it up really quick if you want to vamp. If you want to vamp really quick, I could pull it up.
Because that's what I was thinking. Like Waller, Kelsey, maybe even Andrews. How often are they in the slot? Are they basically just a big? Are they tight end a lot of the time in name only? Well, they're just big receivers.
Well, you know what also I think is a sleeper if they want to do a big slot type thing is Malik Heath. And I was another player that we did not bring up at all for receptions or receiving yards.
This is true. He could be like the this year's Juwan Winfrey or, some other preseason producer getting lots of catches.
And like we really didn't think about it at all. And so for reference, Travis Kelce spent about 36% of his time in the slot last year, and then Darren Waller spent he barely played last year, but he spent 191
well,
divided by 345.
Must admit that Kelce number is lower than I expected.
And so Waller spent 55% of his snaps in the slot last year. And Kelsey spent 36. Are you asking slot and wide?
Oh.
Cuz he spent 388 snaps in the slot and 272 out wide of his total of 1069.
How much in line? Like 10?
No, his in line's actually more than you'd think. 400 in line. In line was where he lined up the most. He lined up the most in line, and then second, like right behind it in the slot, and then down a little bit wide. He does more traditional tight end things than I think he gets credit for because he is such an elite pass catcher, and
he's probably the cheat code as a pass catching tight end.
Second best tight end ever, third best tight end ever. He's up there.
He's getting up there.
It's him, Gronk, and Tony Gonzalez for me. It's like just pick one, I guess. Depends on if you want to look at peak or. But anyway, we're losing it. We're losing the plot.
Football.
We're losing the plot. All right. It is my turn, huh? To ask you a question.
Yes, that was still the slot question.
Yes, that was still the slot question. My fourth question is, if Jordan Love does blank in training camp and the preseason, I will feel confident about him going into the regular season. Ooh. This is a very open-ended question. You can answer this in a lot of different ways.
So I think I'm for the preseason
and training camp and the practices, because I think a lot of people, at least in my opinion, I think that the joint practices are more important than the preseason games, because I think there's just people are trying harder. Is I think the biggest thing.
Yes.
So I think that's
the starters
are playing
more.
Exactly.
I mean, as opposed to the preseason games, the starters usually play very little. All right, so I'm going to give something that I think maybe will give us some insight. Maybe a bad answer. I have to look. If he throws twice as many touchdowns as picks.
Okay. All right. I like it. I like it a lot. I think that's a good one. And can I ask you the inverse? If Jordan Love does blank.
If he throws twice as many picks as touchdowns. He wanted the inverse.
Fair enough.
That would give me a lot of concern.
By definition, the inverse. Well, there's always the argument that, hey, practice is when you should be pushing those boundaries and seeing
take some risks.
And see, because you're not going to get better if you're not taking those risks. So
you don't know where the edge is until you hit it.
Exactly. So you got to throw a bunch of picks to know what not to do, I guess,
that's
an
why I'm
argument.
not sure if it's the best answer, because they might be willing to throw more in situations than they will during the regular season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I just want to see, I think, for me, my fill in the blank there is I want to see him, if he performs well in the joint practices, I will feel confident about him going into the season. My confidence will grow, I guess, going into the season. Because I think those are like the biggest like kind of measuring stick when you're going against like the first team of the other team, and they're trying to show you up like that. I think that's the big thing, and I think both those defenses are quite good. Both the Bengals defense with Big Lou Anarumo as the DC, and then obviously Belichick with the Patriots. Like those are pretty decent tests. Like those are good defenses. You want to hit me with your second to last one, your fourth one?
So I'm trying to think about how exactly do I want to work. What was I really looking for this question? So let me think about.
You have 8 to choose from too. You have quite a few.
So I'm just thinking about how. So I'm gonna actually change what I put in here. And maybe this is a little bit. I'm gonna like focus this down to a more. What does Devonte Wyatt? Devonte Wyatt has to do blank for you in the preseason and training camp for you to feel confident he's ready to be a frontline defensive lineman.
Like confident?
Yeah. So the question is, how much is he going to play? Well, it's not just preseason games.
Well, here's two things. I think to feel really confident, he would have to pass Slayton on the depth chart, which I don't think is a crazy thing to ask. Like, you're a first-round pick going into your second year. You should be ahead of the fifth rounder from 2 years ago. And I understand that Slayton is kind of nominally the nose now, and Kenny's going to play off him at the 3, so there is some complications there that, like, hey, position-wise, it makes sense in some ways for Slayton to play more than Wyatt because Kenny, like, it lets Kenny do more fun stuff rushing the passer. But I think to feel really confident, I would like to see him pass Slayton because you're a first rounder going into your second year. Like, they invested high draft capital into you. To feel some level of confidence, I would like you should be wrecking shop in the preseason games. Like, you should be noticeably better than the rest of the guys on the field in the preseason games because the starting offensive linemen are not going to play for most of these teams.
So the question is, how much is Wyatt going to play? I suspect he might play a decent amount.
He's third on the depth chart, and he barely played last year. I would hope
little
he
plays.
played
last year, so I'm thinking he's going to get some run.
Yeah.
The other question is, like, third of the depth chart is, like, who are going to be the top 2 snap getters
on the D-line?
On the D-line of the preseason.
In the preseason. Wooden and Brooks.
Oh, you think Slayton and Wyatt will play very little?
They'll play the first quarter, first half.
What about Ford?
Maybe, yeah. It'll be an inning eater. Like that type. Because the thing is, in preseason games, like the preseason games are oftentimes like the top snap getters are the like 4th, 5th rookie and the rookies, the 4th and 5th guys in the roster.
The guys who are like fighting for a spot on the roster.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
So it's I don't think that's a good measure of, like, necessarily the best measure, at least, of who's having the most impressive preseason, offseason, etc. But I think, for Wyatt, he should play in the preseason. I would kind of understand if they didn't have him play. I would be a little disappointed because if he's not going to play in the preseason and he's not going to play in the regular season,
right? So I guess we could also include, like, how often he's running with the ones in the drills and the joint practices.
Well, the thing is, it's
as snaps as well in terms of preseason training camp.
Yeah, and I think, they just... That's why I think he needs to get ahead of Slayton for me to feel really confident, because how often are they going to play base down, like 3 down linemen? Like, not that often.
Right,
like,
less than 50% probably.
Unless they go back to doing heavy penny personnel, which, it would be interesting. But then you're taking off another first-round pick off the field, so that's a whole different question because you're taking Walker off the field, or you're taking Campbell off the field. Or you're taking your captain with the green dot off the field, which also does not feel like a great idea. So it's like it feels like the only way for Wyatt to be in the personnels that they are their best personnels are for him to pass Slayton on the depth chart and Kenny to kick back to nose and Wyatt to be playing at the 3 tech. But it doesn't seem like that's something they really want to do. And so I've been seeing, like, a lot of, like, I don't know. I've been seeing a lot of optimism about Wyatt that I'm not sure what it's based on, because besides his draft capital, because I mean he was fine last year, but he never really played, and so it's like, and he hasn't passed Slayton, and like we've been seeing Wooden getting snaps with the ones, and I don't know. I'm a little worried about him, honestly. And I think if we don't see,
you expect to be getting close to being a star as a first-round pick.
And he was a 24-year-old first-round pick. So it's like he should be physically mature. Like it's not like he needs to put on muscle mass and like stuff like that. Like he's in his physical prime already.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I know I hate to say this already for like a second-year first-round pick, but I think it's a make or break season for him. I don't know if that's too harsh or not, but if he doesn't show you much this year, or he can't get on the field this year, like you got some serious concerns there. I don't know. I got one more question for you, Dad, unless you wanted to add anything on to Wyatt.
No, I think that was it for Wyatt.
Are you concerned?
A little. I mean, there's some encouraging things. I think if he's given the opportunity, he's gonna. He looked better in a lot of the snaps he got last year than Lowry or Reed.
I know.
The question is, can he hold up well enough in the run?
Yeah.
To stay on the field.
And I think, like, yes, he was better than Lowry and Reed. I think it says more about Lowry and Reed. And
right. So the question, will he be more than just like a third down passing?
Yeah. Because they
third
need him
long specialist.
They need him to be.
So when they're not actually running, they got like, 2 down linemen. And so nobody's really, can he get to the point where is it just be like him and Kenny when it's passing down, or is he going to be able to play more than that?
Yeah. All right. I got one more question for you. And this one's just more of a, take it anywhere you want. It is not analysis based at all. Blank is your favorite part of training camp in the preseason. I'll give you. I can give you mine while.
In terms of just like fun.
Yeah. What's your favorite?
Like, watching the football players ride the bikes.
That was the first thing that came to mind for me too. Is the bikes. This is just hilarious. I think the other one is family night. I think family night's a whole lot of fun to watch because it's like the first time you get to see everyone in uniform, in pads, like kind of scrimmaging a little bit. It's a lot of fun. I think those are the two things that are the most fun for me. But the bikes thing was definitely the first thing that came to mind.
Bikes thing is just kind of fun. I do like seeing the clips of the plays, though, the little bits of video that managed to come out.
Little tiny bits that sneak their way out every once in a while.
Little hit.
Yeah, just a tiny bit of football that we just get to wean ourselves into the season. But yeah, that was my last one. It was like a kind of pseudo question. But anyway, you want to hit me with your last one before we get out of here?
Yeah, I don't know if I have to like a little fun thing like that. Let's see that's just a downer.
Well, you haven't been doing fill in the blanks all the whole time.
I've converted some like who will and other two. I've reworded them to be fill in the blanks. Blank will win the number three safety spot.
Okay, I like it. Owens. I think Jonathan Owens will win the third safety spot. I think he's got the most experience, or the most recent experience as a starting safety. He's a good tackler. I feel like he's pretty steady. I think the tackling is like going to be important because we saw what bad tackling at the safety position did last year, and so I just think. Unless they put like Nixon or Douglas back there, and then that's a whole another can of worms. And
the whole thing is.
I'm gonna go with Owens. I think Owens is like they brought him in for a reason. He started a lot of games for the Texans last year. That would be my pick. What do you think?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if I wanted to make this like specifically for like a dime safety or a dime backer kind of. Then I'm like,
Johnson
Carpenter.
Carpenter is not a safety.
I know, but he could be like a dime backer.
A linebacker now.
So it's going to be a dime backer. You could fill that with either linebacker or a safety.
That's true. I feel confident about Owens, though. I think the tackling makes me feel good about him not being a liability.
Yeah, and I think Jones,
Anthony Johnson, you mean?
Johnson. It's like
Jr. Sorry, Anthony Johnson Jr.
Anthony Johnson Jr. Curious to see what he does.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were really excited about him. We got to remember he is a 7th rounder. pump the brakes a little bit. I know Chris Collinsworth had mocked him in the first round. We still got to pump the brakes a little bit. I don't think we can necessarily. Yeah. Some people were already like, start him, and I was like, okay, it's like we can calm down a little bit. But no, I could certainly see him winning that third spot. I think that's totally within the realm of possibilities. It's not like it's the strongest safety room in the league. So like,
so you like Owens more than Moore? I mean, Owens is probably the best tackler of the group.
Yeah, and that's why I was going with that. I just think some steadiness there, and that's why he'd be the third guy. And we've seen him start. He started a lot of games.
He's also tied with Ford for being the heaviest safety in the group.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
They're both 210.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. They're the two that can tackle. So that adds up. But anyway, that kind of concludes our training camp hype segment, I guess. Fill in the blank. Training camp prep. Training camp preview. Next week we will have some actual practices to talk about, which is all kinds of exciting. So come give us a listen next week. We'll be talking about what's going on in training camp day 1. It will be that same day, the 26th. We'll be doing one episode for the rest of the off season, one episode a week, that is. Not one total episode, one episode a week for the rest of the off season, and then 2 episodes a week once the season starts. Like we said earlier, if you like what you heard here, come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet news, highlights, videos, articles we find interesting when we have new episodes. Just keeping you up to date on everything in Titletown. One-stop shopping kind of there. And then come give us a follow or a subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc. YouTube, we put all our episodes there as well. Come subscribe to us there. It really help our numbers. Thanks so much again for listening. We'll be with you with real Packers practice news next week. Thank you so much for listening. Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.